COVID-19 PCR test price has been reduced to no more than 500 Rand with immediate effect. The decision comes after the Competition Commission, together with private laboratory Lancet and Empath, reached an agreement to decrease the price, which has been high for almost 2 years now. We speak to Mr. Tembinkosi Bonakele from the Competition Commission. Thank you very much, sir, for your time this afternoon. Perhaps a quick reminder as how we got to this level today.
Well, we got a complaint from the Council for Medical Schemes in October, complaining about exorbitant prices for the PRC test. And PRC test is the gold standard of testing for COVID-19. It's required by doctors. It's what you also need when you travel. So we investigated it, and we did confirm that indeed the cost of administering the test, as well as the volumes, justified a lower price, and the price had been around this for the past 2 years. And the respondents, namely the laboratories, had failed to adjust their prices with diminishing costs.
To these two laboratories, and during your investigations, why was the price initially set at 850?
Okay, so let's go back. The price initially, when at the beginning of COVID-19, the price was around 1.4, 1.5. We then, the minister granted a block exemption which would allow the industry to discuss prices with the Minister of Health, and that discussion led to the reduction of price from around about 1.4 to 850, which was a real reduction and benefit at the time. But what has since happened is that the price of technology has continued to go down, and the volumes have continued to increase. The two factors which should have led to the prices getting adjusted downwards, that never occurred. So it doesn't mean that 850, when it started, it was a bad offering. It was indeed a reduction from 1.4 and a gain to the public. But those prices should have been adjusted over the last 2 years, and they were not.
And given that they were not, what repercussions are there, if any?
Well, the thing is, we have to bring an excessive pricing case, which is what we threatened to do after an investigation. In fact, we sought to bring an immediate relief to consumers by way of an application to the Competition Tribunal. Then the parties reached out to us, and we reached an agreement that they will reduce their prices with immediate effect, and in exchange, the Commission will drop its investigation. So the initial negotiations were such that we could not reach 500 per test, but we forced them to this level, and we are satisfied that this is an appropriate level, and it justifies us foregoing the investigation.
Mr. Bonakele, as recently as 2 weeks ago, one needed to travel and did a PCR test. That cost well over 1,000 Rand, because there's a different price apparently when you are traveling. Have we looked into that as well? Has there been a change in those prices?
We expect that there must be a change. This 500 applies across the board. And we have heard about the airport, so we will be monitoring what's happening with travel very closely, and we can expect, you can expect that when you travel next time, you will pay 500, or otherwise we would need to pursue those laboratories.
Right. When you do a rapid test at pharmacies in South Africa, it's a little bit less than when you go to Lancet, for example. One had to do one a week ago, and it was 250 Rand. Do the prices of rapid tests stay the same?
Yes, they do, because this is a very different test. PCR test is very different from those tests. We haven't looked at those tests. we may in the future do so. But PCR was the most important because that's one that's widely used. As I said, it's the gold standard of COVID-19 testing, is required by doctors and a whole lot of other authorities, including travel authorities in different countries. So it was our priority. But I think that laboratories should know that we will be reviewing all costs that are related to COVID-19, and where we find abuses, we will act.
Why 500 Rand?
We looked at their costs and we looked at their margins, and we worked out many of them were saying that they cannot sustain 500, some were wanting 600, some 575. But when we looked strictly at their cost, we thought that 500 was sustainable. In other words, they will still make a margin, but it will be a reasonable margin, and a margin that at least would be still within the strict application of the Competition Act, which is what we are empowered to enforce. So we enforce against excessive pricing. So when we looked at the margins, we were satisfied that at 500, we would not have an excessive price, at least from an economics point of view.
Very quickly for us, please, sir. Anything else you can update us on in terms of investigations you're doing around COVID?
We are looking at the usual products all the time. So we have a lot of investigations. Some of them are emanating from the SIU, and those were where there were supplies to government, and we will be making announcements around these as we go along. So these are the ones involving PPE. But you mentioned that there are also other tests, so we're likely to be looking at other tests for COVID. We're looking at drugs. Drugs is a very big issue. We've just agreed now with Roche that one of the drugs for treatment of COVID-19 that they have announced, that it will be made available in South Africa by way of a patent waiver.
Mr. Tembinkosi Bonakele from the Competition Commission, thank you.
Very much.